Hey everyone, welcome back to our CLC Leadership Podcast. I'm Pastor Kevin, our executive pastor here at Christian Life Center. I'm so glad to be able to facilitate these conversations. You've been hearing from different pastors, some stories behind the scenes. That last episode was very interesting, right? Talked about Sazon and connecting with different cultures. But today we have a special topic as well. But before we get into it, I want to introduce our guest today. We have Pastor Toby, our worship pastor. Why don't you greet everybody, Pastor Toby?
Hey everybody, I'm Pastor Toby. I've been pastor for about maybe 4 months now. Pastor over the worship ministry, and it's been a blessing. I've just had a great time leading the music department, the creative arts department, with specifically through music. It's just been a great time. I'm excited for what God is going to do through the ministry, and yeah, I'm excited to be here with you guys.
Awesome. I mean, since you're here, we might as well let everyone know. I mean, so you were in the nursery, and then tell us the beginning. Give us the origin story. We want the behind the scenes.
Got you.
Yeah, give us the origin.
Yeah, so I was born in Nigeria, but we came over when I was 2. And pretty much what happened was my parents found this church and they put me in preschool here. They opened up a spot for me to be a part of the preschool, and I've been a part of this church kind of ever since. So grew up through Surge Ministry, grew up through Powerhouse and Wired Ministry, went through all of the things, and then joined in the adult music ministry. And from there, it's kind of been the Spark Notes version of the journey that I've been on.
But that's amazing, though, just seeing God's faithfulness through the Moroquinos.
Yeah.
Right?
Got married here too. Yeah.
Yep, and got a baby and everything, right? All the milestones. Shout out to Next Gen. Of course, we have Pastor Tom on with us. Pastor Tom, thanks again for just allowing us to facilitate a different way where we ask you all the questions, you share the insights, and we get to glean from the wisdom and experience. Shout out to Pastor Eric and Pastor Caleb who kind of got this started.
That's right.
Just to kind of change up the format just a bit.
Yeah.
But Pastor Tom, I've been having a great time on this.
It's been great. It really has. Yeah.
Oh man, Pastor Tom. I know sometimes too, we get to share some stories that people probably don't know about us. I remember this is so funny. This is not on the script. We're just talking right at this point. But I remember Pastor Tom when you came on to be our senior pastors, and Deborah and I, we got married, and I never forget this day. It's such a funny story. Y'all were at our reception, and we're hugging y'all. And again, I don't know what the future holds. I was like, I can't wait to get back off honeymoon so we can get back in ministry. And then bam, life groups, and then everything just. But I just remember just so many years, man. It's been 13, 14 years, and just God's just been faithful.
Yeah.
But thanks, Pastor, for entrusting us to try some new things here at CLC. Today, we're talking about the power of communication, the power of communication. So get ready to be inspired, uplifted, and equipped. So the first quote I want to share, again, this comes from John Maxwell's book, Everybody Communicates. Everyone communicates, but few connect. Remember, the goal is not just to speak, but to actually make a connection. A quote from his book is, all good communicators get to the point before their listeners start asking, what's the point? That's funny. The first point I want to share here is deliver your message with precision. I want this first question to go to you, Pastor Toby. Why do you think it's important to be precise when communicating? Oh, people don't also know you do photography and things of those sorts as well, which I'm sure this could connect as well. But why do you think it's important to be precise when communication is taking place?
I think when it comes to communication, the clarity that you give to an individual or to the people that you're communicating to, it just helps them know what direction you're going. It's not, it doesn't leave them confused or open to interpretation. I think precision in your communication and being exact with what you're trying to say and what you're trying to communicate really just helps effective dialogue happen as well. I've seen it happen. You mentioned the photography. When I pose an individual or pose a couple, I'm not telling them I'm not speaking through the roses. I'm like, hey, put your hand here, engage in that moment. It helps just clarity. It gives them that ease to understand that you know what you're talking about, but then 2, it's just a clarity of I can trust what you're about to share with me. And I think it develops a level of, just respect with who you are as the communicator. And so, I think that's what happens when we're precise and we're effective with our communication.
Absolutely. I know it's also important with the worship leading.
Oh yeah.
So on the stage,
Yeah.
you're talking to the band and the singers and Pastor Tom and
Yeah.
Pastor Candy and me.
Yeah.
You can't read the lips, right? You're
There's
like,
a
I
whole
don't know what you're
language.
saying.
Yeah.
How do you feel like it helps from the stage to have precision in what's being communicated across that whole stage experience?
Yeah, I mean, if you don't have clear communication or trust with the people that you're flowing in worship with, if I can't throw a signal at you to come up after worship, or even with Jeff our music director, letting him know the direction of the song and the song flows and all of that. It's important because if we don't steer the ship together in unity, it just causes confusion. People are just unsure. It causes a little bit of chaos. Then everybody in the congregation is looking at you like, where are we going? You know? So yeah, I think it's super important. Even in worship, we have, I said it earlier, we have a language with different signs that we show when we're going into different sections of songs, whether it's the chorus of a song or a bridge of a song. There's a clarity in, hey, this is where I want us to go. And that is also contingent on the trust that they have with me to know what direction we're flowing with.
You know, the crazy thing, Pastor, with this is you even see this across their entire team. I mean, it's why there's lyrics on the screen, right? Because if you're in the congregation trying to worship and you may not know that one line, unless it's one of the oldie but goodies, right? The hymns. We do celebrate the hymns here at CLC. We believe in the hymns. But it's just great to see. I mean, even the sermon. I mean, the screens, the sermon points pop up on the screen. The songs are on the screen, and people are able to flow with precision with the communication flow that's happening. So we're passionate about the Holy Spirit. We're encountering and experiencing God, but we also want to make sure clear communication is happening. So, Pastor, this next point I want us to talk about a little bit. It says here, you're not communicating unless you're over communicating. It comes from this quote in the book. It says, the first time you say something, it's heard. The second time, it's recognized. But it's the third time where people actually have it learned. So, Pastor, my question is, how does repetition and communication enhance people's understanding? And even just from your experience of things you see, why do you feel, or speak a little bit to us about how repetition is important? Repetition is important.
It's really good. And as I jump there, Toby, I think the analogy of the worship team is great when we're talking about precision in communication, because the preparation that you guys do that makes the worship experience what it is.
Yeah.
You mentioned the lyrics, the signals, all of that preparation, leads to the precision of the communication. And I find when it's communicators, they're not clear or precise when they're not prepared. So when they just get up, they shoot from the hip, they come in, in the old Sunday school quarterly, and okay, today we're, and they start reading straight from the book, or the life group leader, that just picked up the lesson 15 minutes before life group. That lack of preparation hinders the precision, because communication really is about what we know. We've experienced it. Right. We've seen it. We've experienced it. We know it. We feel it. Then we can communicate it. But communication isn't precision until it moves to action. So until you have that congregation singing with you, that's so good. You're performing. Yeah. You're not leading worship.
Right.
And so Kevin, I couldn't help but miss that, because that was really good. I wasn't expecting that. The link to music really comes into this message of communication. And without the preparation, we're not going to have precision. And so, man, that's a word to all of our leaders, our teachers. The more prepared we are, the more precise we're going to be. Even if it's a tough conversation, we call them crucial conversations, or instructions. But okay, back to my question. That was your question. My question is, the over communicating, right? And just the making sure that what we're saying is connecting with the listener. I think the over communicating for me is because, and this is where our episode went last month, right? Because of a multicultural environment, because of multi-generational, environment, and multi-gender and multi-personality, I think we have to find different ways of saying
That's good.
different things.
That's good.
You
That's
know,
good.
and sometimes it requires it to be said in 2 or 3 different ways. You know, and so somebody that doesn't speak regularly to a multicultural, especially environment, you know, why are you repeating? Well, I'm not repeating. I'm saying it different ways so that they can get it, you know. And the more we do that, over communicating in a sense, giving different angles, different visuals. You mentioned, you know, lyrics or sermon points on the screen, or clips, or props, or different things that enhances the learning environment, is in a sense over communicating the message so that different individuals are getting it, because we never know when they're going to have the light bulb go off, you know. And they tell us as leaders that when we're sharing vision, you know, when we get tired of sharing it, it's just when people are starting to get it.
Yeah.
When I feel like, oh, I've said this so many times, now they're just starting to get it. The light bulb goes off. And so it gives us that clarity of our of what we want to say. Now, as leaders, it may be how you want to lead the department, what you're trying to do in the ministry, a new initiative. And all of that then will bring alignment. And the more we can get alignment, we can get movement, you know, for the kingdom. And so over communicating, it could be, now, okay, let's get practical. Text messages.
Yes.
WhatsApp's the biggest thing right now, right? We think email, but it's the WhatsApp has become so easy. Text messages, you know, the good old phone calls, right? Of course, email. I think we have to be careful not to remove the one-on-one meetings.
Yeah.
We need the one-on-one. We used to call them the huddle meeting.
Yeah.
Because in the huddle, I can pray for you. I can lay my hands on you. I can touch you. I can feel you. I can sense that synergy. But Zoom and these environments since the pandemic have just really enhanced communication. All of these methods are methods we have to employ as leaders and workers within the church.
Absolutely. Communication it's everything. It's our relationships, it's vision, it's the gospel, it's our ministries. I mean, the worst thing sometimes is if anybody is left out of a particular communication of something going on at Christian Life Center. And we want to make sure that we let everyone know what's going on.
And we have 3 big questions that helps us. You probably have it written down, but 3 big questions that helps us in our communication. Go ahead and share them.
Oh, yeah.
We find conflict happens when one of these 3 questions have been missed.
Oh, yeah. Help me remember them. So we have who needs to know, which is very, very important. And with our ministries, maybe there's something you're thinking about in your ministries, choir, music, and maybe something with next gen. Who needs to know if it affects them? Who needs to approve, which is very, very important, because sometimes we're processing things and the people that should be a part of approve or should making the decision to approve
and
that.
Who has to be a part of that conversation?
And who has to be a part of it? Because if all of the people that it affects are not talking, if facilities is not talking to next gen, not talking to music, we can create something that could create some serious
if one
problems.
Of the ministries decide, oh, we're going to do this, but then they don't communicate to anybody, and I'm not going to give any specifics, so no one feels like we're pointing them out, but they don't let nobody else know. Right. Now they've shown up and we don't have the room set up. Things aren't ready for them. The building's locked. The alarm goes off.
Right.
And now we have to pay a fee because the alarm went off. All these things because they didn't tell somebody.
Right.
Or who needed to approve that? Who approved that big old picnic? On the same day that we're having a revival or whatever. Being exaggerating. And so those help us a lot. Now, this is all part of communication.
Absolutely.
And when we're talking about the volunteers in a large setting, this helps us to work more in unity.
Absolutely. One of the things I love, Pastor Toby, about the teams that we have is you guys use a planning center.
Yep.
And you'll be scheduling people out for a month. And the volunteers, those of you watching, will communicate, I'm unavailable for these months. They'll do like block out dates, which lets you know then to reschedule. So shout out to the volunteers. I know we always shout you out, but we have to keep shouting you out. But thank you for just continuing to correspond. You got your vacations coming up, your wedding anniversaries, and you circle back to us and say, I'm going to be gone for the next 4 weeks. And then we can plan around that to make sure, like we always say, Sunday's coming.
Yeah.
And Sundays has to continue to function and flow. But thank you for just continuing to always feed back.
Kevin, you've been really good this last year in your new role and you've had a lot of roles, so we joke about it. But this last year in your role as executive pastor, you've been really good of communicating back to the group what was discussed in the meeting or in whatever it was, usually the meeting, right?
Right.
Now, what's good about that, and I'm thinking about that for our teams, is that not everybody usually is going to be at every meeting. And so, even if it's just the 5 bullet points, hey, we discussed this and this and this and this, not that we're just, trying to say anything can be done just through communication, but at least everybody can get into the know as we discuss that we're going to have a change of uniform, a change of service time. We're going to we're going to do that. So we're talking about over communicating. These are ways that we can over communicate, and be effective in unity, as a team.
I think that's the goal, right? The unity. That's so good. The communication unifies us so that we can continue to move on the same page. I have this next one for you, Pastor Toby. The quote comes from the book. It says, "People don't remember what we think is important. They remember what they think is important." So craft your communication around what matters to your audience. So my question for you, Pastor Toby, is in the end, people are persuaded not by what we say, but by what they understand. So my question is, how do you think, or why do you think it's important to make sure that our communication is crafted in a way that people can understand, the people that we're trying to communicate to, what we're specifically are asking them?
Yeah, that's so good. I learned this through a worship intensive that we recently did, and my heart was, how can I help worshipers grow into what God has called them to be as far as leading worship and stuff like that. But I wanted to equip them with what they felt like they were lacking, as well as some practical tools. A way that I kind of crafted my communication to them was I just asked, like, hey, what are you looking to learn in this 6 weeks? Is it learning how to ad-lib? Is it learning how to pick sets? Is it learning how to exhort? Is it how do you prepare for your rehearsals? I think when I asked that question and they let me know, hey, I really struggle with finding harmonies, or I really struggle with finding the right moment to exhort. It helped me kind of craft out what the next 6 weeks of what I'm communicating to them. It really helped me understand this is what I need to kind of communicate so that they help and so that they grow in what they're feeling like the Lord is calling them to grow in. And so I directly just asked them. I engaged them directly. I was like, hey, what do you want to learn? And then from there, I kind of just, as the conversations continue to develop and grow, I challenged them in those exact areas. Like, hey, you wanted to learn how to ad-lib, let's sit down and let's go through an ad-lib session together. I think when you kind of just go directly to them and ask, like, hey, what are you trying to grow in? It helps me, it informs me as the communicator to know what I'm sharing and how I'm helping them to grow and develop.
That's really good. Pastor, talk a little bit about the reason why I love what you're saying is the importance of getting to the people and seeing where they're at. We've done surveys and these sorts. Pastor, not to throw you off, talk about why we shifted to doing the Bible engagement initiative and how that came about from even some of the questions that we were asking the congregation, and how that became, we call the activity of Christ, and something that's actually adding a lot of value. Really, so talk a little bit about we used the survey, we asked the question, and then we started an initiative.
Yeah, and Toby, I'm glad you really got us going there, because these moments that we can engage and it's active listening in a way.
Absolutely.
As we're in a collaborative environment, hearing from those that we're ministering to, it helps us to minister more effectively to them. Yeah. And if we're so prideful in what we know and what it's always been like and what it's always been done and this is the way it should be, if we're so stuck in that, then we can miss really where those are that we're trying to minister to. Right. Yeah. What are they feeling? What are they walking through? So observing, what's happening in their life. Now, Pastor Candy's really good about that with our team, right? She just constantly is helping us to come back to, what is happening, what is transpiring. And as we observe that, we pay attention to that. It creates topics that we're going to talk about.
That's good.
It helps craft our sermon messaging to our life group studies. Of course, we really have to keep in mind on our context, not just multicultural now, the context of South Florida, the context of society, the values of society, you know, what's happening in our nation and around the world. I mean, it just spans out. And when we know that, it helps us craft our sermon. So assessments are the best way to help us discover. What you used was the word, the activity of Christ, or the divine urgency. Where is Christ moving? Or what's the urgency of God, you know, in this moment? And out of a survey that we took, and we just did one recently, and out of the survey that we took, we saw a statistic that came up that alarmed us, and it was how much, the question was how much people are engaging the Word in devotion on a weekly basis. And when we saw that it was a very small percentage, and then we began to follow some of the what do you call them, the surveys and the reports from Barna and different ones, it began to show us that, okay, it's not just CLC, but it's something we're fighting in society at this time, that we began to say, and we're probably good at this, that we began to say, Kevin, okay, it's not enough to talk about. We have to read the Bible or be engaged in the Bible, but now we've got to be intentional. And I think this is a part of communication, is that we're moving, we're activating the audience, or in this case, our members, our congregation, activating them and moving them. And so we began to say, how can we better equip, resource, make it a positive experience that we're doing this together, and let's just say consistent at it. Let's just keep coming back, and that there's a reset. So if you've ever tried to read your Bible in a year, right? You have a revival, you come through 21 days, I'm going to read the Bible this year, I'm going to fast 3 days a month. You got all these goals, and then you get started, and 3 weeks in, you start missing, and then you fall off, right? You fall behind, and you lose motivation. So we said, okay, our goal is not to read through the Bible in a year. That's a wonderful goal, and if someone can do it, wonderful. Our goal is that you engage the Bible every day.
That's right.
That we're engaging the Word every day. And so we said, we're intentionally not going to try to push through the Bible, but we're going to make sure that we're engaging the Bible engagement. We're engaging the Bible every day. And then we're going to bounce around, right? We're going to get into the New Testament. We're going to get into the Old Testament. And it's been so rich to go into the minor prophets, to go, into different writings of Paul and into Luke and Acts. We put together, it's just been so rich. And it came off of the assessment, the survey, the collaboration, the hearing the audience, observing what they're walking through. So now here's all the points, right, of this talk. And this is observing, what are they experiencing, and therefore crafting our messaging, our programming, our talk, our worship service to what will activate God's purpose in people's lives.
And that's good, Pastor. I'll put this last question on the table, and everyone can jump in. Out of this point, influence is about the clarity, not just words. And that's the key. We can think we're making the connection by, as Pastor mentioned, just being distant and coming up with ideas. But if it's not connecting with people, we're not. I think John Maxwell says, if you think you're leading someone, you turn around, if nobody's following you, you're just taking a walk.
That's right.
That's what he says.
That's right.
But influence is about clarity, not just words. So my question, and everyone can jump in, how do we ensure that we communicate effectively, essentially, is the question. So how can we make sure our communication is effective as we're growing in our influence with people and serving people, and even the leaders and volunteers watching? How can we all ensure that our communication is being effective in how we're communicating to other people?
Yeah. I mean, through the worship ministry, I've had to listen to how the different modes that we've tried, because we've tried group text messages, we tried the WhatsApp groups, we tried the emails, we tried newsletters, we tried Planning Center, and I had to listen to the congregation or to the ministry team to see what is actually effective, what is actually being received. It goes back to what we were mentioning earlier, just hearing from them, because if we're sending out a message in WhatsApp and nobody's really reading it, if I'm sending a message to, we have layers of leadership in the worship department. So we have the choir leaders, we have group leaders, we have section leaders. If I'm sending a message out to the group leaders and it's not effectively being disseminated down to everybody on the team, then maybe I have to shift my mode and how I'm communicating, and not just using that group leaders text message. We actually had to restructure our WhatsApp to now have an announcement channel. That way, every person in the ministry, if I send out a message of, hey, we are parking off-site for Easter, that if I need to send that and make sure everybody receives it, I'm sending it in that channel. So I had to listen to what was effective.
Yeah.
I had to observe, okay, what's not really helpful right now? You know, what are people not really engaging with? And from there, I used that to kind of inform the different modes that I communicate through. And it helps give clarity, because they're hearing, if they need to, they're hearing directly from me. If they need to hear directly from their group leader, they understand the priority through the different layers of communication that we have. So definitely observing and seeing what works, and then just listening to what hasn't been working either.
Yeah, that's really
And
good.
growing from there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
And I think we have to remember, right, that there's going to have to be, and we're talking to leaders and volunteers, and in the practical way, there might be different avenues or ways, methods
Yeah.
for the same messaging. You know, one may not work. So
Right.
it may be an email, but it still may be the WhatsApp.
Yeah.
You know, it still may be, okay, sectional leaders, I want you to call everybody, you know, on your team. This one's really important.
That's good.
You know, I let the board know, for example, in board meeting, these are the events coming, and they know which ones. There's an expectation that if you're in town, you know, that your presence is important here as a board member of our church. So I'm letting them know what my expectation is. And what I was thinking, Toby, is, you know, sometimes it's not the leader's fault. The leader's communicating, and now it's the crucial conversation, the moment with a leader, let's just say sectional leader, right?
Yeah.
That none of your sectional leaders would ever have to have this talk, I know. But it would maybe be, hey, this is a part of your responsibility. And if you don't pass it down, so, you know, whatever department we're in, if Pastor Eric or Jeanette and others are expecting you to pass down some very important information or teaching or whatever, it might be just a, hey, this is an expectation, and this is what we need, you know, from you. I think we get what we ask for in commitment. So if we're not asking for commitment, if we're not sharing our expectation, then we can't blame them, you know? So I was with Pastor Nadine. I know we're wrapping here, but I was with Pastor Nadine a couple of days ago, and she said, I told somebody that this is the way you are, and this is what you expect, and have you learned his nonverbal, you know, cues and expectations, you know? and that's the reality, is we have to make sure that we're communicating. This is important. These are different ways that we will communicate it. And in all of those ways, we just keep working with love and grace. You know, we're a volunteer organization. You know, we're all voluntarily saying, I want to do what God's called me to do in advancing his kingdom with you, with this team, with this group. And therefore, we're going to work together at being it. So there's love, there's grace. That's where I'm going. As a leader, there's love, there's grace. But at the same time, we want to be effective, and we want to respect everybody's time, their energies, and all of that.
Absolutely.
So, good talks.
Yeah, it's
Kevin.
really good.
Wow.
I want to end with this scripture, Ephesians chapter 4, verse 29. It says, that's Ephesians chapter 4, 29. That's 2, so 3 times. Ephesians chapter 4, 29.
Over-communicate.
I got to make sure I was clear. Let everything you say be good and helpful so that your words will be an encouragement to those who hear them.
Amen.
Let everything you say be good and helpful so that your words will be an encouragement to those who hear them.
Amen.
We hope that this was a episode that added much value. Continue to be encouraged, inspired, and uplifted, and we'll see you on our next episode.